of the two examples of the equations we just solved, only this one would have been a quadratic. This one is the linear because that's the mx plus b. Quadratic is when it's in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where this one just didn't have the bx or the plus c, didn't even have the a. The a was just a 1x squared. These are the terms that we're going to have to start factoring when we really set up some of the techniques we just used. Now, the difference between these is, notice, I can't just minus the 6 and divide by 7. When I have an x squared, I can't just use inverse operations to get through it. When I have an x squared, I can use a square root, but not down here, because if I take a square root, I can't take a square root of the whole thing. I can't take a square root of each one individually. When I have that squared and an x and a 6, I can't use my square root property. What I would need to do, we have in math, it's called the product property of 0, which says, when you're talking about a product, remember product means multiplication. If two numbers, a times b, multiplied to be 0. Well, think about what that means then. If two numbers multiply to be 0, and it almost even seems too obvious to say, then either one and or both of them are going to equal 0. To get two numbers to multiply to be 0, it has to be 0 times a number times 0, or 0 times 0. If we have a product of 0, then set them both equal to 0. Well, that's what we can do back here. That's what the whole beginning of this lesson has been, is factoring turns things into a product. And what we're doing is we're taking a trinomial and we're turning it into a product of two binomials. When I do my double parentheses, double x's, and I have my two binomials, that is a product. It's not just two numbers, it's a binomial and binomial, which are numbers, but that's what the factored form does for me, is makes a product. So when I factor this, when I see that plus 6, oh, plus means they're going to be the same sign. Minus means they're both going to be negative. Think of two numbers that multiply to be 6, add to be 7. Minus 6 minus 1, doesn't matter what order you put them in. I could make a table, I could go through all the signs, but remember, negative 6 times negative 1, positive 6. Negative 6 plus negative 1, negative 7. We're going to get so used to, we're going to see this factoring trinomial so many times that we will get used to being able to eyeball those. Well, what we've done is we've now made a product. If this product equals 0, then think of that as my a equals 0, and or think of that as my b equals 0. Set each binomial equal to 0. X minus 6 equals 0. X minus 1 equals 0. And what we now have is, because now these are both linear, now I can use my inverse operations. Add 6 to each side. Add 1 to each side. But look at what's going on is x equals 6. X equals 1. The big picture, whenever I want to solve, I want to figure out what works in the equation. We'll look back up here. Think about, in my original equation, what if I plug in 6? What if I had 6 squared minus 7 times 6 plus 6? 6 squared is 36. 7 times 6 is 42. 36 minus 42 is minus 6, but plus 6 equals 0. 6 works in the equation. 6 makes it true. But what about 1? Think about if I go back up and plug in 1. 1 squared minus 7 times 1 plus 6, 1. 7 times 1 is 7 plus 6. 1 minus 7 is minus 6 plus 6 is 0. It works also. Both of those numbers end up working back in the original equation. In Math Excel, what we want to say is separate your answers with commas. 6 comma 1, but remember, we don't want parentheses. That's what we'd be telling it in ordered pair. What we're saying is 6 works and 1 works.